Hello and welcome to first person and second person perfect and imperfect verbs. This lesson is going to add on to what you already know about perfect and imperfect verbs. So let's start by reminding what we do know. The imperfect is a tense that shows action that is ongoing. This is usually shown using two words in English. He was carrying, or they were carrying in the plural. In Latin, we look for a ba to indicate the imperfect tense. Portabat, he was carrying. Portabant, they were carrying. The perfect tense shows action that is complete. Portavit in the singular and portaverant in the plural. He carried or they carried. Usually a one-word verb in English, often it has ed, although not always. In Latin, we have to look for different cues for the perfect tense. We can look for a V, such as in this verb. Sometimes we can look for an X or a U, and other times the stem is different, so we just have to watch for it and know what the perfect stem is. For example, the Latin verb scribere, which has a B in the present tense, turns into scripsi with a PS in the perfect. So that's something you have to know about different verbs. Also keep in mind that Latin does not always include the pronouns I or we and you with the verbs, the same as it doesn't always include he or they. So you have to pay attention to the verb endings to know which person is the subject of the sentence. For example, the verb up here, portavit, doesn't just say carried, it says he carried because of the T ending. Portaverant doesn't just say carried, it says they carried because of the errant nt ending on the end. So Latin doesn't have to say he or they, it can indicate it just with the verb. We'll see that today with I or we and you. So let's add the first and second person to our imperfect tense. This is the imperfect tense completely conjugated. We can see it up here in the singular and then down here in the plural. Notice the ones you already know, portabat and portabant, the third person plural and the third person singular. Portabat, he was carrying, and portabant, they were carrying. Now we're going to add the first and second person. If I wanted to say I was carrying, I would say portabam with a B-A-M ending. This is a little different from the present tense, which uses an O for first person, like porto, laudo, scribeo, there's a scribeo. So you would say, I was carrying. In the second person, we see our S ending, which reminds us of the present tense, portas, laudas, laboras, and our BA, which indicates the imperfect tense, so portabas, you were carrying. In the plural, our endings still remind us of the present tense, portabamos, we were carrying, and portabatis, you were carrying. The important thing here is to note that we still are looking for the BA to indicate the imperfect tense in all of the different persons, and then we have to look to our ending to determine whether it's first, second, or third person. Portabam, I was carrying. Portabamus, we were carrying. Portabatis, you were carrying. Let's have a look at the perfect tense. As we add the perfect tense, the first and second person to the perfect tense, we can see that our endings change again. Some of them still look familiar to us. We've already learned the third person, portavit and portaverant. So we can say portavit, he carried, and portaverant, they carried. Notice that the first person ending changes again. We can see in the perfect tense it ends with an I. So we still see the V and the VI that indicates to us that it's perfect, but we see that that I ending now tells us it's first person. So portavi, I carried. The second person ending is probably the most unusual. Wisti, I-S-T-I. Pretty different, but we want to notice not just the I at the end, but that whole ending, I-S-T-I, to indicate to us second person. Portawisti, you carried. Portawimus, we see that VI indicating perfect tense, and then we have our usual we ending, which is mus. Portawimus, we carried. And finally, the second person plural ending, portawistis, which is you carried. Let's try a few different verbs. Notice up here in the corner, I've put our verb endings for you to have a look at. This is a chart that you should review, and a chart that I'll also include in our online lesson. It's a good way to review the different verb endings. You could even add the present tense in its own chart so that you could see all three tense endings together. So if we look at our first verb, which is laudo, and when I see the VI, I know we are conjugating it in the perfect tense. So laudavit, he praised. If I want to say I praised, I would look over here and see my first person ending is I. So I would say laudavi, I praised. When I want to do my second person, again I see my ending here, isti. So I would say laudavisti, laudavi, laudavisti, laudavit. Now I want to move into the plural. We praised. I see my plural ending here, we, imus, and so I say laudavimus. Second person plural, the ending is itis, laudavitis, and then laudaverunt. So to conjugate this verb in the perfect, it goes laudavi, laudavisti, laudavit, laudavimus, laudavitis, laudaverunt. My next verb, rikitabat, has a BA in it, so I know we're using the imperfect tense for this verb. Rikitabat, he was reciting. Now I want to say I was reciting. I look here and I see my ending needs to be an M. Still have the ba, but add an M. So I will say rikitabam. Second person singular, rikitabas, and then rikitabat for third person. Now I want to move into the plurals. Here I see my ending, bamus, so I'll say rikitabamus. We were reciting. Second person plural, you were reciting, rikitabatis. Finally, let's look at traxi. This verb does not have a V, but it does have an X, and it still has that I in it, which tells me we are in the perfect tense. So traxi, he dragged. Now I want to say I dragged. Traxi. Second person singular, second person singular, you dragged. Traxisti. Traxit, he dragged. Now I want to say we dragged. I use my imus ending. Traximus. And then you dragged. Traxitis. Finally, they dragged. Traxerunt. Like most situations in Latin for the verb to be, the imperfect tense is irregular. It looks like this. You've already seen erat and erant, he or she was, and they were. Now have a look and notice the other endings for the first person and the second person. Eram, I was. Eras, you were. Eramus, we were. And eratis, you were. Notice how the endings look a lot like the imperfect tense, with the M like laudabam, but here it's eram. And the other endings are consistent with others that you've seen so far. Let's try parsing with these new verbs. I've kept our charts up in the corner for reference if you'd like to see. I look at my first verb, which is laudabamus, and the first thing I'm going to notice is my ending, which is a mus ending. I know that that translates as we. Now, what person is we? Well, we is first person, and plural. I can see that when I look over here, that it's in the plural column and it's the first person. So I see that mus ending. Oh, actually I've circled in the wrong chart. I see that mus ending right over here. The next thing I notice, of course, is the ba, and that tells me the tense because ba indicates the imperfect tense. So laudabamus is first person, plural, imperfect. My next verb is venisti. I notice my ending, and I'm careful to get the whole ending here, not just the I, but the ISTI, isti. When I check my chart, I see that ending, isti, is right here. Oh, it's second person, and it's singular. When I look at the rest of my verb, I don't notice the V or the X that sometimes indicates the perfect tense, but I know that that ending, that isti ending, only belongs to the perfect tense. So even though veni or venire is a verb that doesn't show the perfect tense as easily, I know this verb has to be perfect tense, and it is. My next verb is celebrawis. I look at my ending, and I see that IS ending. That tells me, hang on. Sorry, I just realized that I made quite a big typo there. My mistake, celebravistis, so I look at my ending here, and I have just noticed I've also made a typo up here. This ending needs to have an extra S in it. I don't know how I missed that, but it should be ISTIS, like this. I'll make sure that's changed on the copy in your lesson. So when I look at my istis ending, I notice it up here in my corrected chart, and I know that it is second person and that it is plural. I can see here a V in my verb, which tells me it's plural, but I also know this ending, this ISTIS ending, only occurs in the perfect tense. So I can confidently say this is a perfect verb. The last verb when I look at is viderunt. I have a look at my ending and I see an errant ending. And when I check my chart, I notice that ending right here in my perfect tense. It is, in fact, the third person and plural ending. So I know this is a third person plural verb, and I see that it is in the perfect tense, so I know I can say perfect tense. They saw, viderunt. If you have any questions, please send me an email or meet online for our next synchronous session.